Sound has always been a pivotal element in the Star Wars universe. From the iconic hum of lightsabers to the majestic scores that have become timeless, Star Wars has changed the lives of so many, immersing fans in a galaxy far, far away. Today, we're diving into the magic behind the fan animation Clone Wars Battle of the Heroes. We'll explore how the post-sound team and music team made this video truly one with the Force. Let's meet the incredible team behind the sound. Hello everyone, my name is Samantha LaCroyx. I'm an actress, director, and singer, and I'm here with a wonderful team. Gentlemen, would you mind introducing yourselves, starting with you, sir?
My name is Pawlenko. I am the lead sound designer of the Clone Wars Battle of the Heroes, and happy to be here.
Wonderful.
My name is Tyler Groh, and I am the composer for Battle of the Heroes. Got everybody together to kind of hop on this amazing project with Luke, and yeah, it was a blast.
Cool, and hello, my name is Luke Truan, and I'm the score producer on this wonderful film, which was an amazing journey that I was thrilled to be a part of.
Wonderful. So, gentlemen, the first question is, why Star Wars? For me, it is absolutely iconic. It's been a staple in my household since I was 5. How about you? What drew you to this project? What made you excited? Let's start with Luke this time.
Okay, yeah, so I guess my love of Star Wars started as a child, much like a lot of us, right?
Yes.
And so, fun fact is that my dad was actually going to school at USC, and before Star Wars was released, in 77, he took me to see the on-campus release before it was even on. And so that's what really solidified it for me as a really, like basically a toddler, like 3 years old,
Yeah.
And so that kind of did it for me. And then I kind of grew up with it, fell in love with the music, and always wanted to work on Star Wars project as well. As soon as I found out the project was going on from Tyler, I was like, I would love to be a part of it. And he, brought me on pretty quickly to it. And I've always loved Star Wars. And so because of my, love of Star Wars for my entire life, I immediately was like, I signed on as soon as he said, yeah, we have room for you. And I was like, okay, let's do it,
Nice.
Yeah.
And how about you, Tyler?
So Star Wars has been a part of my life since I can remember as a kid. I think my aunt loaned me the full DVD set, and I remember just, probably like everybody else, playing the first original 3 movies and just falling in love with the music and, just seeing how it orchestrated my life in a weird way where I was just like, I want to do that one day. I want to write my own Star Wars music one day. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, and you?
Pretty much the same thing, growing up watching the movies. I remember seeing I was at a beach house, my beach house the family had, and we were watching VHSs. We had the Star Wars movies, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And ever since then, I've always liked Star Wars, and I've always wanted to be a part of something Star Wars related. And I was happy to have Tyler, and he introduced me to this whole project, and I've been excited. And I was excited to be a part of it ever since.
Amazing. Every birthday I watch it. Every single birthday. My kids have to sit down. We watch the entire trilogy, beginning to end. Every birthday. They're like, Mom, again. But they love it too. So Tyler, you're the man that made all this happen. Tell us, how did you get into this project?
I got into this project, surprisingly of all accounts, on TikTok.
Oh.
Yep.
That
So
is
I was
different.
scrolling on TikTok and I saw this guy called Hello There posting about, his animation. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I was in college at the time doing college scores, and I reached out to this guy. I'm like, hey, you need help with the music? And he's like, yeah, sure. Why don't you come help me out? And I'm like, awesome. Really? Okay, I'll do it. So yeah. And then, eventually the conversation went from how far along are you expecting me to jump in? And he said about maybe 2 years. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. I'll be here. And then the conversation went from, as I started building my career at SCAD as a student for sound design. The conversation went from music to sound design, which is, hey, do you need help with the sound design for this? And he's like, yeah, sure, bring them on. And over the course of a year or two, we started getting the crew together. And when the call came, we went full force into the music and sound for this.
Full force.
Good fun, good fun, good fun.
That was good. That was good. So, okay, wonderful. What is your relationship? How did you guys all meet? Are you all from SCAD, or how did all that work out?
I I met Tyler from SCAD, and
Okay.
I actually met him.
College party.
Ah.
Well, he was looking for someone to do sound design for a game that he was helping work on, a fan game called Legends of Pirates Online, and I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And
Yeah.
from there, he and I just kept talking, and we'd hang out a little bit, and he invited me to like a Super Bowl party, and from there we just would talk a lot, and eventually he invited me to the Star Wars project. And I was like, oh, great, yeah, that'll be awesome. So I've been waiting for this for us to do the sound for quite a while.
Yeah.
Because I also was told it's going to take a couple years. I was like, you know what? That's fine with
That's
me. I was
fine.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some things are worth waiting for,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And Luke, how did you get involved with all this?
Well, I mean, I met Tyler at a networking event,
Okay.
and we kind of you got to know each other. We had an immediate Star Wars bond, of course.
Understandable.
And then, I don't know, a few months after that, I just kind of like talked about Star Wars, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm working on this project." And then I kind of was like, "Hey, do you need anybody else?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's bring you on." And together we made, a really great team
Yeah.
in terms of music and, making sure it was authentic to
It is so
the
fun.
John Williams maestro himself. Was
Yes.
really challenging, but together, I think is what really made the magic happen.
And
Yeah.
meet the deadline too.
Oh, yeah, and the meet the deadline.
Yeah, that's the big
Took
thing.
a few
It was
weeks.
fast. It was fast.
So you said you had 2 years that you had to wait. How long did you actually spend on the project once it was greenlit?
Like a month or two?
2 months.
2 months?
2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, like we say 2 months, but actually it's like, how many hours did we spend working on it? Probably like,
That's a better question.
yeah, probably. I feel like just altogether, maybe, I feel like in total time, like at least for me, in total time, was maybe only like 4 or 5 days
That's it.
of like total time, and that's a
wow.
lot of crunching. We had because we were working on a TV show, and so in between of these episodes of this TV show, we hopped on the animation and we had to work on this, then hop on the next episode, work on this.
Yeah.
So I feel like we had 2 months, but I feel like we had a lot less than that.
Yeah.
I feel like really had a lot less than that. We really had to bunker down and hammer this out like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
That's probably how creativity actually flows, is when you have that deadline and you got to get it done and you only have that little bit of time.
for
At least
sure.
that's how it
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah.
Forces
Right?
me to really
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So, what was your vision for the music and sound in this animation, would you say? Any one of you can take that. Maybe we should go person by person, or?
So I'll start off with how the original story of the music was going to go. We were going to mock up the whole score. The plan was, okay, he's doing an original animation. He's trying to do it 1-to-1, but there's going to be a lot of some scenes are going to be added, some scenes might be removed and stuff. So what else is going to happen? We don't know. This was the course of 2 years, right? So Ben and I were, he'd call me July 4th and be like, yeah, it's going 35% there. I'm like, okay, cool. That sounds good. I'm planning for you and stuff. And then he'll call me Christmas and go, Merry Christmas, Tyler. I'm 55% there. I'll be like, cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. And I'd be listening to the score as the years go on. And one day I, get off work and he calls me, he goes, Tyler, listen, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to do not the whole score. We're going to do some parts for it. And he explained why. And I think it makes sense because the fans are so in love with the John Williams score that it's sacred. And when he explained, when it made the bigger picture made sense when he gave me the final product and we looked at it and we're like, yeah, it's pretty much almost 1-to-1 to all the shots. So it makes sense to slap the whole score in there. But not that being said, it's probably one of the hardest challenges of what we had to go through for the music because it wasn't all 1-to-1. There are new scenes. When in the original movie Obi-Wan versus Anakin, and then George Lucas cuts to Emperor versus Palpatine, Williams is scoring to those moments, right?
Yeah.
But because this animation is solely focused on the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight, there were gaps now that need to be filled, and so that is a major thing when John Williams is he's like the best composer that is probably ever going to live in our lifetime, and the music is incredible, right? And it is so specific. So when you get to those cues, it's not like you can go to the score and chop something in there. It's very it's not cut and paste. It's you had to come in and compose to it. And the other issue is time frame. So you have 30 seconds to write this cue, and Williams did not intend for his music to go from here and then pick up right back here, you know, and you know, because he would do something incredibly different, right?
Well, his music is so intentional.
Yeah,
Like, every
and
moment is scored.
exactly. And so when it's intentional to go to Emperor Palpatine versus Yoda, you know, you're sort of left with this really challenging gap to fill for compositional. And so I had to get a whole music department together. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Luke. We had a team of assistant composers, Madison, Truman, Christian.
Right.
They were amazing. So Christian came in and he helped with taking handwritten John Williams score and converting it into MIDI for the other assistants. He went note by note and transcribed it to Sibelius. And then I had Madison Denbrock. She's out in LA. Amazing composer assistant. I think she also does some sound engineering as well at a studio there. And what she did was she took the MIDI and she put it into Cubase for me, and she mapped it to Cubase. So when we have the film up there in Cubase, we would have Madison's John Williams MIDI, and it is 2 tempoed to the map. And then we'd have an empty spot here where I would come in and compose, and then we have John Williams coming back in. So that helped me. So all I had to do was jump right
Fill the
in and
gaps.
focus on the composing. And then after that, because we had to move fast in the period of, you know,
We did,
me
we
and
did.
me and Luke, which I'm sure Luke will go into great detail about our collaboration, right? So we would go back and forth in just the music creation process. And then we had to move to the next cue immediately because sound. Nick is like, "Where's my music
Right,
for
'cause
you
he
know?"
needs to
He needs
Yeah.
to hear what's
his
going
part.
on, and
Yeah.
you know. So
We did writing in real time,
yeah, we did, and
remote sessions, streaming audio.
and so that's when Truman came in. When we finished the cue, I sent it off to Truman, who's a graduate from Berkeley, super talented and intelligent guy, and he would take the Cubase stems and prepare it for Pro Tools so we could ship it off to my post guys. So it was efficient workflow. It was fast. It was incredible the amount of time that was saved with these amazing assistants. And it was a cycle of rinse and repeat, just like
Yeah.
Christian, then Madison, then to me, and then to Truman, and then to Luke, who would mix it, and then
Then back
to
to
the
him.
post, and back to me, then post, and it was just a full circle. I mean, it was crazy awesome to see that come to life, and I mean, you had to have it for a type of project like this.
Yes. And again, like you said, it's so important. It's canon, so you can't mess with this. Exactly. You do not mess with Star Wars. So Luke, tell us, so can you expand on that, with the
Yeah,
Our
the whole
analysis.
exchange?
of course. I mean,
Yeah.
you can jump in anytime you want, but like he was saying that he would, get everything in place from the assistant composers, and then he would start mocking up stuff, and then he would upload it to a service that we used for me to start reviewing with the video clips with the music that he was writing, and I could make notes in real time based on the timeline, and it'd be like, hey, let's try this. This melody here, this brass thing here, maybe that's too loud, or we just kind of like collaborate on what needed to change, and then he would go back and then do some scoring, and then at different times when I was available, he'd pull me into remote sessions with Discord and just stream the whole thing through like a shared, video session, and so we were like going back and forth in real time on a lot of the compositional changes just to speed up the whole process. Instead of just, him sending it back and doing more notes and then doing all that. It was just much faster to just do it in real time.
Absolutely.
Because we wanted to stay true to the style of John Williams. And so that was very important to us, obviously, to stay true to, the original score as well.
Yep.
And to blend it with that score
Yes,
was
it's
incredibly
seamless.
difficult,
Right.
not just sound-wise, but orchestrational-wise. You have to make it sound like, John Williams has very specific elements to make it sound like
Yes,
John
he
Williams.
does.
And so you have to stick with that.
What sound library did you guys use?
A lot of orchestral tools,
Yeah.
musical sampling. Speaking of that, we had a big shout out to Jasper Blunk at Performance Samples. Remember him?
Yep,
He's
yep.
So one of the interesting things about these mocking it up with VSTs, right? You have to get the right sound, and John Williams has a nice bite to his French horns and his brass.
Yes.
And
Yes,
and my amazing Junkie XL brass that we were using had a wide microphone sound. It was big, but it didn't have a bite to it when you really needed it. So I'm like panicking because we've got like 3 weeks left in the deadline, and the brass needs to cut, and so I reached out to Jasper Performance Samples, and I'm like, hey, what do I do? I need some help. And he's like, no worries, no problem. And he recommended a library for me. I think it's one of his amazing, angry. I think it's like one of his angry brass libraries. It's mostly solo horn sampling. So that way I can layer the wide brass with the solo French horn, and have the brass cut through, and it made a world of difference, especially with those gaps. Yeah, we've got the gap here to play real quick. So, let's see. Yeah. So, so the first gap is going to be. Okay, so they're fighting, right? And as soon as Anakin kicks him, that's when George Lucas cuts to Yoda versus Palpatine.
Yeah.
So there's this huge gap right here. I don't know if the camera guy can see it, but there's a gap here of just no music.
I see it on the screen.
Yep, right here. There's no music right there. So we have to fill that gap. So
wow.
So here is with the original piece of music with John Williams. I'll go ahead and play it back here. And there it comes back in, right? So here is the new piece that Luke and I worked on right here. Right at the kick. Back to Williams.
Nice. That was beautiful. You're right. It's completely seamless.
That was the whole goal, to make it
Huge
fit.
fan. I listen to this stuff every day in the car. Like I listen to the soundtracks driving because it makes traffic better. It makes it so much cooler.
Absolutely. I know I do.
It really does. You're like, ooh, yeah. Amazing. Okay, good job. So now you're making all these amazing sound effects and everything. So how does this work?
All right, so thankfully it's not as crazy complex as these two guys. I move things from program to program and have 8 other people do something else. I was able to have a team of guys that helped work with me with the sound, and I was able to just kind of divvy up what everyone else was doing. I was doing the lightsabers, the wishes, the clashes, and an assortment of other sounds. One of our other guys, Projal, he was doing the lava, the explosions. Fantastic job, absolutely phenomenal job. Byron was helping with the cloth, Foley, the footsteps, and he helped with some of the robotics at the end, and the very end when the Vader surgery scene.
Yeah,
fantastic job too.
Yeah,
and
love that.
What I was trying to do, I was telling the guys, like, all right, guys, like, we have to watch this entire thing. We wanted to get as close as possible to sound almost just like the film, but of course, we can't just copy paste the sound. We can't just pull it.
No.
So we just have to get as close as possible, but not exactly. And so thankfully, we had access to a fantastic sound library of lightsabers that I was able to put together for every single swipe, clash, hit, saber lock, like everything. It was
heavy process.
Byron did a fantastic job after. Once we put the sounds together, we also sent it to Byron, who helped out with the processing and made it sound just so much beefier, so much better, like so much more crisp. And
Mike Pierluisi doing the Force sound effects.
Yeah, that's all right. Mike was doing all the Force sound effects too, and he did a phenomenal job as well. And so we did a nice team of guys all putting the sound together. And at the end of the day, once we all put it together, it just sounded phenomenal.
So you mentioned Foley. Did you actually go into a Foley studio and do some live?
Byron
Byron has his own setup.
He's got his own setup, yeah. And Byron was able to record cloth footsteps.
Very cool.
And he was able to record Foley again, like for the robotics at the end. He used a whole bunch of things in his studio. He said he was using dishwasher equipment and like pens and like metals and then he processed it and it just I didn't even know. I was like, I had no idea. I wouldn't even think that. It's like Byron, I was like, I don't know how you thought about that, but man, that's just amazing. So
Yes.
just putting all of our heads together to make something as close to Star Wars as possible, and it came out pretty much just like Star Wars.
I mean, it sounds really authentic and it's super creative.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a fun time. I had a great time with it. It was really cool to stretch my Star Wars creative chops.
Yes.
So
Okay, so gentlemen, amazing. I am so excited. What was your favorite sound that you created or worked with?
my favorite scene was when Anakin and Obi-Wan are on the pipes where the steam is coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very, very like lightly fighting, almost fencing.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sounds is the sounds of the warbling and the wobbling of the wires and the pipes. Like you hear like the whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
I was able to find sounds and just process it and mess around with it and make it sound just like the movie. I was like, I'm trying to find that sound. It took me forever, but I was so happy to find it. I was so happy to make it. And I was like, that sounds just like the movie. And I loved it. And then even the little robot that comes in, I was able to, I had a little MIDI plug-in and I was able to mess with everything properly. And I was like, that sounds just like the robot. I was playing on my little keyboard. It's like, this is perfect. And so like that, my favorite scene is just that whole scene because it just sounds so great. Like to me, it does. I love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite bit that I worked on.
So follow up. What was the most challenging scene that you
Most challenging scene?
and why?
Oh gosh. I think it's probably the very beginning because of just how much there's so many lightsaber clashes and whooshes. Just the very beginning is just that's where I feel like a bulk of the fight is like with all the lightsabers, and that's also when I had the hardest time trying to figure out how I wanted to design the lightsabers with the way they flowed in the film or in the video, the fan film, and because at first I was just trying to match the movements and the clashes, and I realized that's just too much. That's just an earful. It doesn't sound good, and so I realized I had to almost make it like a dance, a flow. Like it wasn't every single one. It was this one and that one and this one. And so it wasn't constantly like you don't hear every single whoosh.
Because it'd be too much. It'd be
Yeah,
overwhelming.
so you hear one or the other, or it just whatever kind of sounds the best sonically in your ear.
Yeah.
And it really was just a flow. And eventually I was able to get to just sound just pretty much like perfectly. I was like, okay, this sounds great. This sounds just like the film. I was like, this is it. Cool. So it took a long time though. So I was able to figure that out. I was like, okay, this is what I got to do. Yeah.
So speaking of editing, because you kind of had to edit what you had, because you couldn't just do it to every sound. So what was the editing process in this? How did that work?
So yes.
Go ahead, Tyler. Start.
Yeah, no. So the Ben, who is the director, sent me his temp music pass, and I was like, okay, cool, this sounds good. I can see where there's problems with the gaps, and there was one major problem so the fans will know this part when Anakin and Obi-Wan fight in the middle of the corridors, and Anakin does that. I think it's Anakin that does that cool move, the Lost Dooku move that everybody was freaking out about, and so
That's so cool.
There was a part there where the music didn't quite fit because it cuts again from
John Williams.
Yeah, it cuts again to Emperor versus Yoda, and I think because of time constraints, we just knew we couldn't make another score part there. So I spent like a couple hours going through the reference tracks, and this was the one exception where we could get the track from John Williams to fit one of the gaps or one of the cues that we needed to fill. And it's for you soundtrack fans, it's called I Am Descendant. And, funny enough, I think it is a sequence of music that, Williams wrote for Yoda versus Palpatine, but it was able to fit quite nicely. Yeah. And when it did fit, I was like, hallelujah, thank God, because we can move on to the next cue, which was, the part where they jump out into the outdoor
Right, yeah,
railing hallway when
Right,
and he
exactly.
throws the box at him and
Right,
stuff.
that's so
So that was an original cue that we did. And another music editing part was surprisingly when we cut to that wide shot of the lava, and then we cut to a close up of Obi-Wan. There was a music with the original score that Williams did and the new animation, and because it's not entirely one to one, the music would be out of sync by like 6 frames. And there's nothing. We spent, me and Ben were up till like 2 a.m. and we're like fiddling with the handles of the audio clip, and we're like, man, we can't get this to sync.
Yeah.
And so, but then I think we just looped something. We looped a piece of music, like a certain like 4-second cue, and we looped it, and it just worked seamlessly so that we could get those extra 6 frames, so that we can jump back into sync with where Williams would have been with the original.
Huh.
Yeah, so it was like it was really, really kind of like crazy, like nitpicky and
Late night magic.
Yep, and
Yeah.
and then the end music cue was the last one we did with the thunderstorm. That needed to be original because I think he added some new scenes where Palpatine is like walking up to see
right.
over Anakin, and in the movie he obviously bends down on one knee and looks at Anakin up close. So the score didn't really fit to the transition of the thunderstorm scene, so I had to recompose over that. And what's interesting is I had of course when you write music you want it to be in the same key, but it needed to be in the same pace when we transitioned to the droid scene when he's getting fixed up by droids at the end. So the music had to be in the same key, the same pace, and flow into Vader's theme. So I did Vader's theme at the end there, and it just sort of flowed right into the transition of when we're zooming in, and Williams comes back in with those flutes and the harps, are doing that arpeggio and stuff, and it just it flowed. I think you looked at it and you were like, no notes or something, right?
No notes. There's 0 notes.
Which was it was like 2 a.m. for me. I'm like, thank God, because and I submit it to Byron, last second, and he mixes it real quick, and I think then we called it at the end of the day.
And don't forget, we actually decided to use a little Vader motif at the end of the beginning scene too to bridge that gap.
Yes, we did. Yeah, so that was important because Ben was like, because that original music cue had to be rewritten up until the last second. Ben calls me up and he's like, "Hey, it sounds great, but I think we need to do it again." I'm like, "Okay, sounds good." So I did it again, and then he's like, because he needed it to be more intense.
Right,
and,
that's what he said, intense.
and there's dialogue happening there, so. The original pass of the score was much more neutral and not intense.
Right, it was.
And I understood what he wanted. He wanted that intensity, but the dialogue needed to take precedence because they were talking the entire time.
Yeah.
No gaps, but the music couldn't, cut in. So
That sounds really challenging.
it was, yeah. And
that's when you said, let me just try a quick Vader theme motif. And I was like, "Ooh, I think that might work."
I mean, Vader always amps everything, so
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it gets a lot more intense.
dialogue, and it worked out really great, and it added to his look at the end of that scene too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was like foreshadowing in a way.
I think he was supposed to have red eyes to her eyes glow or something, but he took it out last second or something. So,
Right.
But yeah, that's it was pretty fun musically, everything that we did.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love the part where I would give you a chord and you'd be like, no, let's expand that to this chord. Let's do something. Or you'd say, I'd be like, I can't figure this part out, and you'd be like, add a tremolo of, have the violins do 1 octave lower or something, and
or voicing.
Yeah.
Splitting the chord out between all the different string sections or something like that, or brass or whatever. So all that, that was fun to tweak all that, and then it was
All the
challenging
tricks.
mixing all the music too. That was challenging. as
Yeah.
well.
So tell us about that. What
So once we finished hashing out the composition side, and then
Yeah.
he would refine it.
that's just the beginning, really, right?
That was like, it wasn't finished.
That's step one.
So then was we decided that I was going to mix it. So just to kind of help with the flow, so he could focus on composition, I would take the music and then mix the music, just musically to make sure it sounded great, just alone, like you could listen to it
alone.
like a solo track if you wanted to. And then so that was basically he sent me the entire Pro Tools session with all the audio, and so first of all, I had to learn the way he was routing everything because it was different than the way I set it up. So that was fun to like quickly learn somebody else's workflow. And so I actually had to call you or message you at one point, like, hey, can you explain a little bit of this real quick? And once he did, I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I got it from here. And then so I would send him samples after I mixed it, and then kind of did a little, a little bit of pseudo mastering on it just to kind of get like a finished sound. And he would say, yeah, that sounds great. Or, oh, can you like boost up what is it, the viola, I think, in one section.
Yeah, it
boost
was
the viola, and then the cello needs to come up a little bit. And I was like, oh yeah, it does. So we kind of like collaborated even on that as well. And so it was a good back and forth.
Yeah, and I was like another cue ahead too at the same time. So that's how we were, rolling. Is you'd mix the first cue, I'd be on the second cue, give you the second cue, I'd be moving on the third cue, and just go back and forth.
Just knocked it out. Yeah.
Amazing teamwork, sounds like. All around.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing teamwork.
And it was fun to listen to because I'd get a cut of the movie that had, what Nicholas was working on and Byron and the other guys. And so I was kind of like, geeking out a little bit while I was doing all that. I'm like, okay, this has to be like freaking perfect right here. Like the music has to like, do all the stuff that, you would hear in a normal Star Wars, film that was really, stressful but fun at the same time because, we, really honor the film and wanted to get it right.
Well, especially when you're a huge fan, like we all are, then you have to make sure.
Because I'm like,
just for your own sake.
Even as a fan, I'm watching it also, not only as somebody that's working on it, but as a fan going, I want this to sound amazing if I'm just watching it. Like, I'm not even working on it. And
Not just us as the fans, but all the other fans that were
and all the
waiting for us and expecting a lot from us. So
the 3.8 million fans that have watched it now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the next steps, guys? What do you think?
Love to work on some more Star Wars projects, video
think you
games,
should.
hit us up,
series.
hit us up, Lucasfilm.
Lucasfilm, if you're listening.
Yeah, the team is ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
I mean,
Or Skywalker Sound,
Skywalker
whatever's
Sound.
going on.
Oh, speaking of Skywalker Sound, do you have any people over there? I mean, Skywalker Sound, wow, right? Do you have any heroes there or people that inspired you specifically or gave you some wisdom or anything like that?
it's hard to pick just one
Right.
person. I mean, there's visual editors, there's, the sound guys, there's the composition. People, I mean, even other than John Williams that write music, like Kevin
Yes.
Kiner and Gordon Cobb, Stephen Barton.
Yep.
And then you've got other visual guys like John McCullum, stuff like that. I mean, just veterans of the Star Wars franchise that we all look up to. I mean, so I can't just pick one person. So
Yeah, that's fair.
So-
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Nick would both agree that we absolutely adore the people over at Skywalker Sound. They're the nicest people you'll meet in the world, and we absolutely respect their craft. And so, this project was a love letter to all of the designers at Skywalker Sound, all the crew at Lucasfilm, and to John Williams. As a composer, I haven't
absolutely.
been able to see you at the Hollywood Bowl, but I would I would love to see you at the Hollywood Bowl at some point. Me and Luke, I'm sure. But yeah, I think John Roche, D. Selby, Shelley over at Skywalker, they're always the nicest people when I talk to them. And John gave me the best advice.
Oh yeah, he for sure.
When
Did.
we were in when we were in San Francisco, he just said something along the lines of, when you're out, working on these projects and you see your friends that you're working with, move up in the world, just try to be there and support them. And this whole industry is about collaboration. And ever since the moment we've formed as a team, collaboration has led to more success, more so than being independent.
Oh, I totally agree.
Independent
Yeah,
success.
absolutely.
For sure.
It's just
Yeah.
taking that whole idea of just collaboration and teamwork and the love we have for all each other, and
We're all in this together.
yeah.
We're all in this
Absolutely, yeah.
together.
That's beautiful, guys.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it shows. It shows in your project. It really
I
does.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It means a
Great
lot.
work.
And it's as time goes on, we're only getting better, and
Yeah.
That's right.
Time will tell what's next.
yeah, for sure, definitely.
We're definitely practicing.
It's always great.
All the styles that we do and
Mm.
trying to get better.
Bigger and better.
Right.
That's right.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for joining me here today. It was a pleasure speaking to each and every one of you. And
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks
congratulations
for
on this
having us.
amazing,
Thank you.
beautiful piece of art.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
So it was such a pleasure meeting with these guys today in studio. But of course, there were a lot of other people that were involved in this project. So we're going to actually go to them remotely and find out their thoughts on this amazing project. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Byron Childs, and I have been blessed to be a re-recording mixer for the short film Clone Wars Battle of the Heroes. It's a Star Wars animation that was done by Hello There, and I was blessed to be a part of Hello's post-production team, along with several other of my faithful crew members. It was truly a blessing because I feel like it took my ability to mix to greater levels. I feel like it challenged me, being that this was a collaborative effort. That was a fan film. There were a lot of challenges, especially when it came to the timing. Uh, I remember sitting there in the middle of the night. It's the holiday season. And I remember sitting there saying, this is going to be an awesome film, but I'm getting so many notes and so many changes that need to be made in such a little time. But with the help of some great friends, great team members, and the help of the Lord, I was able to combat those challenges. And I feel like I was able to mix a pretty good, I think it was a pretty good mix. Okay, I like this question. How was I able to manage all of our tracks, which was over 300 tracks? How to get that balance, the dialogue, the sound effects, and the music, how to get all that stuff balanced. That came with a lot of challenges as well. But I think the first thing is listening. The dialogue, there's not as much dialogue. So, but when there is dialogue, I try to make sure that the dialogue is the main thing because, of course, as sound designers, the first thing that we're obligated to do is to tell the story. So the dialogue is definitely the first thing. And then, we have John Williams' amazing score, which was, kind of filled in by Tyler Grove and his team. They were able to put to kind of join everything along, like basically the parts of the original score and fill in the blanks where there was no score. And I had to make sure that they did a really good job making sure that was mixed. But, because those scenes had never been done before, um, you know, there's kind of like this balance that you have to play between, of course, the sound effects are incredible. Um, and, but, the music also takes a big place. But, in the original film, the score is really great. It's phenomenal. John Williams, of course, he's the man. It took over a lot of of the mix. But for this mix, I felt that I really wanted to pay a little bit more attention to the sound effects. So I did kind of I brought up the sound effects a little bit more than the original, but in the areas where, okay, we've heard enough lightsabers, you know, those are the areas where I felt like the music really needed to flourish more. And, Ben, who's the animator of, he's like the main guy at Hello There. He knew what he wanted it to sound like. And With him and the help of the team, of us listening, Tyler Grow was also a part of helping me because he helped score the film. He gave me some great advice, and then a lot of prayer. But for the most part, just making sure that the dialogue is a central part of everything, and then the sound effects, and then kind of playing a balance between the music and the sound effects, making sure that that was full. I did use some special techniques because this was a stereo mix, but hopefully in the future, maybe with some sponsoring, I would love to be able to mix this in Atmos. So we'll see. Or, I would say I would love to mix it a little bit more spatially. I did use Dear VR, which helped me to basically mix a little bit more spatially, especially for stereo. Stereo is a little harder to mix in because you only have two speakers. So everything is always you're always playing um you're always playing this kind of tug of war between what's important and what's not important. But um I feel like if you can do a really good stereo mix, then everything else it'll come. So yeah, hopefully we'll try to mix it even better, even more binaural spatial mix in the future. Okay, so the next question is, what made me decide to become a sound designer? Um, okay, so I'm gonna make this. I'm try to make this a little short, but it's kind of a long story. But all in all, I became a sound designer because, well, actually, I'm not just a sound designer. I'm actually a filmmaker as well. I do make short films, and I've always been mesmerized by sound. Sound has always been a major component of my life. Um, when I was in my mom's stomach, before I was even born, I was told that I would dance to the music when my dad used to play his music in the car. So I would say that ever since, even before I was born, I was always, I always loved to interact with sound, whether it was in dancing or just feeling the groove. I also play a bass. I play the bass guitar and I play a little bit of piano. So I do have some music background, and so I love. I've always been drawn to sound, and even though I know that we're talking about Star Wars, there are some amazing films. I remember when I was younger and I was watching The Prince of Egypt, and growing up as a uh, Christian boy, in a Christian family, going to Sunday school. I remember going to church, and that was one of the films I first saw. And I remember listening to Hans Zimmer's score, um, and listening to the sound that was done. It was just truly amazing, um, and the production that was done, that's what really got me into animation, period. Hearing what could be done with sound, with the Prince of Egypt. And then, of course, there are also live action. Of course, there's Star Wars. I didn't actually get into Star Wars until later on in my life, but I'm still learning about Star Wars because I actually grew up watching a little bit more Star Trek and Stargate and that kind of stuff. So this film it actually educated me on the Star Wars, uh, genre or films altogether. And but I am hopeful that in the future I'll be able to work on some more uh, some more things by Hello There, and hopefully there might be some more Star Wars left to recreate, with animation. I think animation. is an amazing um, medium. You know, and I think that there's still a lot that can be done in animation as far as film. So, okay. So, for the next question, I'm going to use my phone because I have some notes here. But the next question was there anyone from Skywalker Studios that influenced me as a sound designer? Um, and or who I look to for aid, during this project. I've always admired uh, Ben Burt, who was, you know, part of the original sound design for Star Wars. And, I love his work on several films. And, you know, I wanted to, no pressure, you know, but I wanted to make sure that the film sounded, as close to or in proximity of, what the original might have sounded like, because a lot of the dialogue was taken from the original films, and and then also from the Clone Wars as well. um a lot of the films, a lot of the dialogue was taken from there. And so I felt that, as a re-recording mixer for this project, I definitely wanted to make sure that it was as impactful as it was then, with the sound. And I feel like with our advances in technology, um I tried several. I actually went through several monitors for, when I was mixing on this project, and I actually ended up sticking with the Focals, and also the Stephen Slate I think it's the VSX headphones. I hope I didn't get that wrong, but the Stephen Slate headphones, are also using that as a reference, as a source, for making sure that the reverbs and everything were very natural. Because it's animation, everything is redone. There's no production sound. So I wanted to make sure that the reverbs, the tails on the reverbs, and everything was very natural and realistic sounding. So I feel that, from some of the comments from some of the fans of the work that we did, I feel that, I was able to capture that. And so I'm really grateful to mix on this project, and I feel that Ben Burt would definitely be proud. And then also, I'm gonna go to my notes here. Uh, David Akerd and Matthew Wood, who was the supervising sound editor um, for the Clone Wars. They have done tremendous work, and I definitely hope that they have seen the project, because a lot of the films that they have worked on as well, they're, wow, amazing sound designers. I hope that they enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed um, being able to mix it, being able to mix the project. So thank you for the opportunity to do that, and I hope you all see it. Hope you enjoy the project, and I hope that I think my main takeaway from mixing this project, this wasn't a question that was asked, but I think the main takeaway for me, not really only as a re-recording mix for this project, but a sound designer in general. Sound is a very important part of filmmaking, and you know, uh, the next time that you watch a film, uh, I feel like the audience should recognize the sound designers, and because, it's a lot of work that's done. And if we do our job well enough, you won't even notice that we did it. Thank you.
I'm Truman McCaw, and I was one of the assistant composers on the Battle of the Heroes Clone Wars animation project. And I was mainly responsible for importing the music that Tyler was writing into Pro Tools here and making sure everything lined up with the film as well as the other existing John Williams cues that we were using during the film. So my relationship with everyone on the team was very new. This is the first time that I was working on a project with Tyler or any of the other people from SCAD, and I have to say it was a really fun time. I always felt that everyone was just enjoying themselves. You know, of course there was times of struggle or intensity or hard work, but between all of it, it was, talking in the Discord and having fun. And because it was a Star Wars project and made by a bunch of fans, it always just felt like fun. And I'm very grateful that that's how it went. My most memorable moment on the project was probably the day that I got the call from Tyler that I was going to be working on the project. I was on my way walking to school at Berklee College of Music, and on my way, I got a call from Tyler, and I answered it, and he said that he had got my application and received my email, and he wanted to invite me on to the team. And he said, "Do you have a minute to look through a PDF that I've made of what your responsibilities are going to be?" And being so excited, I said, "Of course, I'd love to." And I sat down on my commute and opened up my laptop and just went through the PDF with him of what I would be doing. And I remember that very fondly, and I'm very grateful that I got that call in the first place. So I got into Star Wars uh, like most other people do when I was very young, and I remember watching the prequels on VHS and enjoying all of that with my friends. And for me, honestly, it was a sense of bonding between me and my family and me and my friends at the time. And it just never stopped. And it kind of became my comfort place. It became an escape for me. And as I grew up, I never really lost that. And I always felt that Star Wars has really informed my career decisions, what I want to do. It has informed the type of person that I want to be. And it's just a really beautiful overall story that I think everyone should hear and see. To make sure that Tyler's score fits seamlessly with the John Williams already existing Star Wars score, we made sure that my Pro Tools session was exactly accurate to Tyler's Cubase session in which he was writing all of the music. Because in his session, he knew exactly what he wanted to do creatively and musically. And my job was that when he sent me those stems, to make sure that matches exactly with what he has. And that way we can make sure that everything is seamless and that all of his creative decisions are working exactly where and when they should be. Working with Luke and Tyler on this project was really great. I always felt that Luke had this parental supportive role in the group, and he always made sure people were on time, but also was super encouraging and always messaging to the chat saying, "Hey, we got this. We're gonna get it done." It was really needed. And Tyler, I worked more closely with, and he was great at just giving clear instructions, what needed to be done, and I also appreciated that. So working with both of them was a really great time.
Hold on.
I like that one.